All right, folks, we have a great actor on the phone with us. We're going to talk about the Oscar-winning, award-winning Best Picture film. He was part of that called 12 Years a Slave. I know many of you have seen that. We talked about that here on the show, and several other roles that you know him from but may not recognize the name right away. Rob Steinberg, how are you, my friend?
I am excellent, Brandon. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. Welcome to the show. I want to go ahead and jump right to a film that's probably just going to be one of those that'll just be talked about for decades. I mean, 12 Years a Slave won a lot of awards, a lot of recognition, and just such a great story. And Rob, you played the store owner Parker, and I know that character was kind of based on a real life, character. Was there a whole lot of that sort of historical prep that went into that for you to take on that role?
That's a great question. I mean, it's a relatively small part, and because we knew the importance of what this film was about, and we knew that it would be something that would be around for all time. Even in small parts, you want to do a lot of research and a lot of background research. So, I read Solomon Northup's book called 12 Years a Slave, and did a little research in the time period and found out, about Mr. Parker and what his store was and, what his journey was. And so, what did it take to come down from Saratoga, New York to Louisiana in 1860 in order to come back and bring him to his family and rescue him. And it's a long, arduous journey. So, you look into what the character had to go through and realize that there was danger in being a northerner traveling through the South at that time, with a goal of trying to collect a wrongly accused slave and bring him back on that journey too. So yeah, I think I did some research on it, and I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm proud of the film, and I'm just so honored to be part of that whole project.
Do you think one of the reasons that the film touched such an accord was that it just found this one nugget of history that we really didn't talk a lot about? When none of us grew up in school, we weren't really taught a whole lot about, hey, some slaves would be stolen, kidnapped, wrongly accused, and then shipped south to be a slave. I mean, it wasn't really a topic that was kind of intermingled in. We're memorizing Abraham Lincoln and some of the other facts of that era, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can draw an analogy to some degree to some of the Holocaust films we've seen over the last 15 or 20 years. There's lots of stories of resistance, of fighting, of resistant fighting, of different scenarios in different countries. And, it took filmmakers telling those stories and bringing those to the screen in order to give people a deeper understanding and perspective of just how vast the horror was. And I think in this case, what Steve McQueen and John Ridley had done with the script and with the direction of the film was to really go and find something that had not been talked about. Again, I don't know that stealing black men from the North and kidnapping them was as rampant as obviously, taking them off of the ship and putting them right into slavery rolls. But I do believe it certainly was done more frequently than any of us ever knew. And it was an important story to tell because there were a lot of people who were culpable. I mean, from the people who duped him, right down to the ship, the people who were on the ship who transported him until he got to market in New Orleans. I mean, people were paid off. And if you think about that, a slave was maybe sold at market for between, $500 and $1,500. That along the way, everybody had to be paid off. So these guys that duped him may have done this for as little as $100, $100 a slave. And it's sad to think that someone would be willing to take away somebody's life for pennies.
Was there any real takeaway? Obviously, you're working with Mr. McQueen and an amazing cast and all. Is there any real takeaway that you feel like really kind of has, changed your career going forward?
Well, I've done a lot of things over the last 25 years, a lot of small things, small parts in some big movies and some big parts in some small things that people haven't seen. And, the very first thing I ever did was Die Hard 2. I used to manage heavy metal bands in the 80s, and after a near-death car accident, decided I'm changing my path, and I decided I'm going to act. And that began at the age of 30. My mother blames the head injury from a car accident on the decision to become an actor at that age. But my very first film, Die Hard 2, I had a couple of good scenes in it, and everybody I knew saw that movie. That was one of those blockbusters at the time. At the time, the biggest budget movie ever made, and, one of the biggest grossing movies at the time. And, that was the beginning, and I thought it would all be like that, and I would just be in nothing but big movies, and everybody would see me and everything, and, you get confused and think that it's going to be that way. But it's not. And even a movie like this, I have a lot of friends who can't see it. It's too painful a story. It's too difficult to watch it, stay with them, haunt their dreams. Some people can't see it. And then there's a lot of people who say, well, you know what, it's on my list, but, I'm just waiting to be in the right mood to see it. And I'm like, you know what, you will never be in the right mood to see a brutal slave picture. You won't. Yeah, you're not going to sit around and, you're not going to be with your girlfriend and go, what should we do tonight? Let's get a pizza. Hey, I'm in the mood for a brutal slave picture. Let's watch 12 Years a Slave. It's one of those films you have to watch because it's important. It's not going to be fun, but it's going to be important, and the story is important. And as far as changing my career, at this point, it hasn't, but it's changed sort of my perspective, and it's given me insight into things, and it's allowed me to be part of, for a moment, what it's like to be part of the whole Hollywood fame game, doing interviews, doing red carpets, talking with other actors and celebrities that are, doing the same craft I'm doing, but at a much higher and better paid level. So it gave me a great sense of appreciation. Doing all of these award ceremonies and all of the parties and celebrations were joyous and wonderful, and I tried to make sure that I stayed level-headed, that I was fully appreciative and cognizant in the moment, and that way, if it never happens again, I will always have the fact that I got to play a hero in the Oscar winner. And if I never work again, that'll be enough.
That's pretty awesome. It's a great way of looking at things and a great perspective on things, especially for a career that is so long. And I don't want to go to Die Hard 2 quite yet because I definitely want to touch on that. But I want to go to another film that we definitely talked a lot about here on the show. We really enjoyed a lot. It kind of flew under the radar screen for a lot of folks, and that was Grace Unplugged. It was such a nice, pleasant take on the music industry with a nice faith and family-based theme there that was very interesting and very good. And did you come away with any special memory with working on a film like that?
Well, first of all, because of the theme of the movie and because it was really designed as a faith-based family film, all of the producers, directors, and writers, everybody involved in the film was incredibly supportive and I'd say very loving. It was one of the most enjoyable sets I'd ever been on. There was just such support and kindness and acceptance that it created an environment where you really wanted to do good, and it's an incredible story. And because I had background in the music business and worked for rock bands for a number of years, when I saw that part was being searched for, I contacted casting and said, look, I know you don't want to get a call from actors. I know that's always a no-no. But I live a few hours away from where you're shooting. I could work as a local hire, and I spent 7 years in the music business doing exactly the kind of stuff that this character does. Would it be okay for me to submit an audition tape? And they said, sure. And then within a couple of days, the director called me and said, we'd love to have you. And, I was honored to be part of that film. I'm proud of the work I did. I took my nieces to go see it with me, and they loved it. They loved the movie. The music was great. The performances were terrific, and it sends a good message out to people, and that's a blessing.
It really is, and it was really, really exactly what you said. It was just a real pleasant film with a great message that everybody can see. And I have to ask you, Rob, do a lot of folks realize that you were also Gandalf in the Hunger Games spoof, The Starving Games? Do people really know that's you?
People didn't even know it was me in 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Well, I'm much better looking in person than I am on film, so it's really hard for.
Especially when you put that long white beard on you. That might be a little misleading.
Yeah, nobody really knew it was me unless they knew it was me. Like if they had seen me post a picture on Facebook from the film and saw a couple of little clips maybe from my website, www.robsteinberg.com, then maybe they would know. But by and large, you put a long beard, a long white hair on. No, most people really don't know that's me.
It's going to be one of those points of bizarre trivia someday, folks. If you see the trailer for this, who's that guy? Yeah, it's Rob Steinberg. Yeah, he's groping Katniss. Can't miss. I'm sorry, make sure I get that right. The Katniss parodied character for the Starving Games. It really is kind of a funny little scene, and kind of a bizarre parody film of the age, trying to jab at all the big popular movies, Avengers and what have you. So good stuff, and definitely a big contrast to the films that we were just talking about. So. Rob, I only knew a little bit about the story because I knew you mentioned it briefly, the life and death experience there with the car accident and that kind of thing. So, kind of changed your life on a dime?
Well, of course it's on a dime because it's so quick and so fast. And, I was hit by a drunk driver who crossed over the double yellow line at the last second. I was living in Manhattan at the time. It was 1986, so seatbelt laws were just coming into effect, but in Manhattan, nobody wore them. And so, I wound up being, nearly hurled through the windshield and, broke my femur and spent a month in the hospital having surgeries and attempting to recuperate. That didn't work, and I had to have a reconstruction surgery. And throughout my life, I've still been dealing with neck and back issues that have occurred from that particular event. But I didn't pass out, you know what I mean? It's like my head went through the windshield, and I didn't pass out. I just have, trouble giving up control. I guess I'm a control freak. Even when I, go through a window, I'm going to stay conscious so I can help direct people, to help me. Like, two guys came over. I was like, you have to carry me out of the car. I cannot walk. They put me on the side of the street, and, eventually I got treatment and eventually got back to being able to walk again. And, during the recuperative time, you have a chance to reflect. And I decided I was going to be done with the music business. Just thought it was time for a change. And, of course, once I got well, I went back and did one more big tour with the Scorpions and Van Halen and Metallica called Monsters of Rock.
Oh,
and by that time, I knew I was done. I kind of felt it. And I thought, I want to go to California and I want to pursue acting. Again, nothing that I'd ever really thought of. I thought that I was mildly amusing. I was somewhat entertaining. I could do various characters and character voices. And, maybe it's worth taking a shot. I'm, 29 years old, and what do I have to lose? I lived through a car accident. I'm going to walk into somebody's office and they're going to tell me, you're not right for the role. I think if I can handle going through a windshield at 70 miles an hour, I can handle somebody telling me I'm not right for the role. And so, yeah, it was an opportunity to reevaluate and to, count your blessings that you're alive, because if you had looked at the vehicle and you looked at the impact of the accident, it was possible that, somebody might not walk away from that accident, or in my case, be carried away from it. But, yeah, it gave me an opportunity to think and to pray and to get well and to try something new. I'm thankful that I got a chance to do that.
And you mentioned the Die Hard 2 role. That was definitely a role, and a lot of folks would talk about it, obviously, when it happens. No one's going to forget Bill Atherton's Weasley little TV reporter, always being kind of the foil for the McClanes in the midst of, the news part of it all, and you get to play the assistant with some insight and have a couple different scenes and that kind of thing. And, you touched on, the focus of your career and that kind of thing, but now as you look back, you work with Jim Carrey, Denzel Washington, Jennifer Jason Leigh, all these different names. Is there any sort of memory or any sort of thing that you can hang your hat on, this was really, really fun, or this was really, really, more than just, having the screen time per se. Sometimes it's also just a great experience.
Well, I think you try to walk away with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of information from every experience, you have. And, certainly the most present one for me was 12 Years a Slave. So, that's the most powerful at this point. Something I remember that was really kind of interesting was I was doing a pilot called Bodies of Evidence, although it may have changed names at some point. And George Clooney was in it. It was back before George Clooney did ER. And he was sort of known as the guy that would be in a million different pilots that would never make it. He was really battling around for 10 years, and nothing was really going his way at that point in time. But he was a lovely guy, very friendly, and he said to me at the end of the day shooting, we're going to go down to the Snake Pit and do some drinking tonight. You want to join us? And I was like, sure. It sounds like fun. And so for a couple nights, we sat at this place called the Snake Pit. I think it was on Melrose near Fairfax. And I drank, and he was just he is as you see him. He is a kind and giving and friendly and funny guy. And then time passed, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And ER was successful. Then he left ER and started doing films. And I guess Batman was just about to come out. And I was at a party, and he walked in the door, and, everyone was like, oh, it's George Clooney. And, and he was just sort of standing there by himself. No one was talking to him because I guess people were afraid, afraid to kind of, just walk up and talk to this big star. So I walked over and said hi, and he remembered me and drinking with me at the Snake Pit. And congratulated him on all of the great work he'd been doing and the good fortune he'd had. And he was very gracious and very quickly turned the conversation into what I was doing and what I was up to. Wanted to know very much, how things had been going for me. And I answered the question very quickly in a few sentences and then started to move away so that other people could talk to him. And I didn't want to monopolize his time. And then he pulled me back into the conversation and asked me some specific questions about the things we talked about. So, that was a great experience. Meeting those kind of people. Someone like Jim Carrey was very lovely when I met him, and very engaging. And Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bridget Fonda the same. Bonnie Bedelia at Die Hard 2 and I became very good friends. And so you take away a little bit from each experience, and sometimes you just go, you do your job, and you go home, and you never have any contact with those people again. So it's random when that happens, and when it does happen, and a good friendship develops out of it, it's wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to close a little bit with your work on Treme, because I know you live in New Orleans, and that really starts to capture that environment in a very unique manner. And I want to give you a chance to speak on that experience.
Well, I think David Simon and Eric Overmyer, who were the creators of the show, did real justice. I mean, New Orleans it's its own unique animal. There's only one New Orleans in the world, and it's the only place like it in this country, maybe in the world. It's very hard to capture it. It's very hard to get the essence of the food and the music and the attitude of the people. And so many movies and TV shows have tried and failed. And, everybody in New Orleans was like, oh, you see that movie with Dennis Quaid, and he was walking around going, hey, Cher, and, come here, Cher. It's like there was nothing real about it. It was all very manufactured. But what David and Eric did was carefully construct a cast of people who were brilliant, who either were from New Orleans or had a strong tie to the city, and then used people as consultants and highlight food and music within the context of the story, and do it with the people who created the music and created the food. So you get a sense. You get some of your senses can get piqued in watching that show. You can't really get the sense of smell and taste when you're watching television, but they did their best to try to emulate that. I think a lot of people are very proud of the work that they did on that show, and really believe that they were able to highlight and show aspects of New Orleans and a culture that just hadn't been properly shown before. The city's back, and it's stronger than ever, and it's an amazing place to be. And I'm really thankful I'm there.
Fantastic.
And that means you should come. Your audience should come back and see the city. I mean, there's no evidence unless you actually go into the hard-hit places where they're rebuilding now. But in places where visitors come to the city, there's no evidence of anything other than growth and success and joy and happiness.
That's fantastic.
So come and visit.
Absolutely. And, I know you have a couple projects coming. I know about Assassin Fury, but I don't know too much about a drop date or anything like that. And you want to just plug that real quick, or any other projects you got coming?
I don't know the drop date of Assassin's Fury, and I did do a little recurring stint on Drop Dead Diva. Played a city attorney there. I don't know if I'll be called back again for that, or if the show's even going to be continuing. And I'm out in Los Angeles now. I'm taking meetings, doing auditions. I Can't tell you what I've auditioned for, but there's a few things that are under wraps, big announcements that may come down in the future, and I'm optimistic that I may be part of those projects.
Well, we will be hopeful for you, and it's been great to talk to you, Rob Steinberg. So definitely, folks, I know he touched on it briefly, but we definitely need to emphasize again, if you have not seen 12 Years a Slave, it's absolutely a requirement. It's just as much and powerful as Schindler's List was when it came out, and it's one of those life-changing things. It just starts to open back more of history and details than you probably are well aware of. And for a film to do that, it's definitely a credit to the creators, the cast, and the crew, and the author of the book, and just an amazing experience. And Rob Steinberg got to be a part of that, and I can't thank you enough for fitting us into your busy schedule to talk to us a little bit, get to know you a lot more. And now folks will know not only who is the guy that's on the plane and Die Hard 2, but they'll also know who's behind that beard in that little creepy cave scene of The Starving Games. Rob, thank you again so much.
Thank you. And listen, for any of your audience that's coming to New Orleans, you can look me up. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And I have a couple of bed and breakfasts down there, and would be happy to, be a tourist and a tour guide and show anybody around that wants to come and see this wonderful city that I live in.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, sir, and can't wait till we can talk again.
Thanks a lot, Brandon. It was fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.